Hey guys, this is Dan from Let's Tank, and today we're going to be looking at the Blood Death Knight on the BFA beta. Now, first things first, yes, the Blood DK does feel a little slow and a little clunky, but that's for a few reasons. Obviously, we haven't got artifacts anymore, so you're going to lose all them talent points. Also, haste has been nerfed, and we've also had a big stat squish, so our haste just isn't there at the moment. So runes aren't coming up as quick, and sometimes you can be there for a few seconds with like 0 runes to do anything with. But luckily, that's kind of fixed with the ability Rune Strike, which is on the tier 1. Unfortunately though, you've got to pick between Rune Strike or Blood Drinker. And as many of you know, Blood Drinker is a really strong talent. Another slight problem with the Blood DK is currently that Bone Shield charges can just get removed real quick. So all you're pretty much doing is spamming Marrow Rend, which gives you no flexibility to spend your runes on anything else because you just try and keep your Bone Shield stacks high enough as to take less damage. So this results in a bit of boring gameplay, you don't have much choice, and you find yourself in a lot of situations just spamming Marrow Rend. But I think the main problem for me personally with the Blood DK is that both grips, so Gorfien's Grasp and your normal Death Grip, are on the GCD, which means you can't just quickly target a mob and grip it over while doing your normal rotation. You've got to make a decision between doing a grip or doing your normal rotation to see what will benefit yourself and the party more, which I guess Blizzard is kind of going for to make it more engaging gameplay. However, for me, it just feels real clunky and not very fun to play, and it's a big put off for Blood DK in general, as I was considering maining it in BFA, but just this change alone is real put off for me personally. I'd love to know your guys' thoughts on the GCD change for grips in general, let alone everything else, but mainly the grip thing on the Blood DK. So comment down below on your thoughts on why grips have been put on the GCD. So next, let's have a look at the talents. So in tier 1, we've got Heartbreaker, which most of you are aware of what it does, and Blood Drinker, which is pretty much the same as what it does again on live. And then we've got the new talent, which is Rune Strike, and what Rune Strike's going to do, it has a 1 minute recharge and it has 2 charges, and every time you use it, it's going to generate 1 rune, and then every time you spend runes, the cooldown on it's reduced by 1 second. So as you can see, this is going to really help get rid of the clunky gameplay and not having runes up at certain times. However, as I have said, you're going to be losing Blood Drinker, which is a really big cooldown, especially in the raid scene, as when I was doing some raid testing, I actually needed to swap to Blood Drinker just as a cooldown for certain mechanics. Now on tier 2, we've got Rapid Decomposition, which again is a talent returning. We've got Hemo Status, which is kind of like the legendary Shoulders, I believe, where each time you use Blood Boil, it's going to increase the damage and healing done of your next Death Strike, and it stacks each time you use it up to 5 times. And then we've also got on this tree the Consumption ability, which is your artifact trait. However, it has been nerfed. It no longer gives your whole party leech. It's just going to heal you for 100% of the damage that it deals, so it's not the best talent on this tree, and you're going to want to pick between Rapid Decomposition or the Hemo Status one. Currently I'm using Hemo because it's really broken and feels really powerful. Now on the 3rd tier, we've got Foul Bulwark, which is again returning, Ossuary, which again returning, and Tombstone. All 3 are returning. You're going to want to pick between Foul Bulwark or Ossuary, depending on what you're after. 4th tier, we've got Will of the Necropolis, Anti-Magic Barrier, and Rune Tap. Rune Tap and Will are pretty much the same. Anti-Magic Barrier is going to reduce the cooldown of Anti-Magic Shell by 15 seconds and increase its duration and amount absorbed by 30%. Obviously, with how much magic damage reduction has been nerfed in BFA, that's a really strong talent, and also Will's a really strong talent. Rune Tap's kind of hard to use because of how runes are working currently and being really clunky and slow, as I've already said, but you're going to need it in certain situations, just like Anti-Magic Barrier. For the most part, Will's probably going to be the strongest talent on this tree, apart from certain situations where magic damage or a big hit's going to happen. Now on the 5th tier, we've got Grip of the Dead, which is a really strong talent, as Death and Decay reduces the movement speed of enemies within its area by 90%, decaying by 10% every second. So this is a really strong kiting talent, and I've used it pretty much in every dungeon I've been in for kiting mobs when they're just trucking me or they're taking down my bone shields too quick. Situations like that. Really strong talent, and pretty much you're going to be using this 90% of the time. Tightening Grasp is going to reduce the cooldown of Gorfien's Grasp by 30 seconds. It doesn't affect Death Grip, just Gorfien's Grasp, this one. And obviously you're going to use this in certain raid situations or dungeon situations where you're going to be needing your Gorfien's Grasp every 1 minute 30 instead of every 2 minutes. And then we've got Wrath Walk, which is just another movement speed cooldown, like it is on live now, but you've got a talent into it, which really works well along with Death's Advance, which is your current movement speed on the beta. Now in the 6th tier, we've got Bloodworms, which isn't that great still. We've got Mark of Blood, which is pretty much the same as it is on live. And then we've got Vorocious, which makes your Death Strike have a passive, which every time you use Death Strike, it's going to give you 15% leech for 6 seconds, which is pretty strong. Overall, this tier, like, in general, isn't the best. Not very exciting. I've been testing out Bloodworms a lot just to see how like it is and how much healing it actually does. It's average, I'd say, at best. Vorocious is pretty strong, and Mark of Blood is just like one of those things where you're going to use it for maybe hard-hitting bosses and stuff like that. Now, the final tier is where I personally think it gets interesting. We've got Red Thirst, which was a lower tier talent on live currently. We've got Bone Storm, which does pretty much the same as it does on live. And then we've got Purgatory, again, does the same on live. Now, it's a real hard choice for me between Purgatory and Red Thirst, but for the most part, I take the Red Thirst just to reduce the cooldown of Vamp Blood, as the more uses I can get out of it, the better. I try not to die or go into Purgatory as much as possible, so having Red Thirst is really strong, but obviously when you're progressing new raid bosses and stuff, you're going to want to go with Purgatory. So for the most part, you're going to be using pretty much certain talents for different things. If you have got not a lot of haste, you're going to be going with Rune Strike over Blood Drinker, but if you're on a strong hitting raid boss, you're going to be really considering taking Blood Drinker for that extra cooldown and that extra bit of healing on yourself. At some points, you'll be finding yourself just getting absolutely trucked and really needing that extra cooldown. Tier 2, you're going to be picking between Rapid Decomposition or Hemostasis, again, depending on if you're getting hit hard or not, and if you need that extra bit of healing. Tier 3, for the most part, you're probably going to be taking Foul Bulwark, but Ossuary is really strong as well. Tier 4 is all fight dependent, but for most dungeons, you're probably going to end up with Will of Necropolis, just because it's active all the time and you'll probably see a little bit more use out of it. Unless there's some bosses in the dungeon that have like high magic damage or magic abilities or do hard-hitting abilities where you might want to take the anti-magic barrier or the rune tap ability. Now the 5th one, Grip of the Dead if you think you're going to be kiting, Tightening Grasp if you're going to be using Gorthrine's Grasp a lot, or if you need the extra movement speed, Wrath Walk, it's up to you on that one pretty much. Now the 6th tier, Voracious is really strong and Bloodworms is pretty average. I'd probably go for Voracious for most part. But again, it depends on what build you're using. Voracious is probably going to be really strong if you've got Rune Strike, as you're going to be using a lot more abilities. Now final tier again, as I've already spoken about, Purgatory is really, really strong talent. It'll keep you from dying if you mess up once, but then Red Thirst is also a really amazing talent as it'll reduce the cooldown of your Vampiric Blood, which is always good, especially in dungeons. You can use it on more pulls, stuff like that. So a lot of that's personal preference and a bit of strategy behind it as well. Personally, I'll be going Rune Strike, Hemostasis, Ossuary, Will, Grip of the Dead, Voracious, and Red Thirst for a basic build in dungeons, and then building upon that when I get more haste gear and stuff like that for raiding. So next, I'm just going to quickly go over the Azerite gear talents. So pretty much what you can expect is one of the talents you can pick is going to give you a shield if 4 enemies are around you. Other talents will increase your stats, and then there's one that increases the healing done by your Heart Strike. Nothing too major, but obviously it's just a boost and something to be aware of, and this is kind of the stuff you're going to get going forward. It would have been cool to see like maybe them increase certain talents. So for example, like if you put a point in a certain piece of Azerite gear, it would give that consumption party leech stat back. That would have been really cool to get back, or later on maybe, or maybe in another tier. That'd be really cool. Hopefully they do something like that, but who knows. But at the moment there's nothing really too special about the Azerite armor apart from maybe the Pride as kind of effect you're getting from having 4 mobs around you. But at the moment it doesn't really absorb too much damage. I think it was about 3k, but I think you can also stack the Azerite buff because you can get it on, like, I think it's the head and the chest piece, this one, which is in the tier 2 socket. So they'll probably stack together and give you, like, instead of a 3k shield, they're going to give you a 6k shield. But that's something I'm going to test out once live happens and see if they do stack and stuff like that. So final thoughts on the Blood DK on the beta is that they feel very sluggish. In dungeons you're going to be feeling the threat nerf pretty significantly, as you're going to be rune starred a lot of the time due to the haste. Maybe if they give another 5% on the bone shield and later nerf it, as I may have already said in the video, this is where I think they should go at the moment. Boost the haste a little bit just to make the gameplay a bit more fluid. It does feel very sluggish, and obviously Bone Shield charges, just spamming Marrow for a lot of the times, pretty boring. So doing something there could also help the gameplay a little bit. Also, sorting the GCD thing out on the grips really needs to happen, I think, to speed up the gameplay a little bit. the gameplay just really feels too slow at the moment, and it really shouldn't and really doesn't need to be when they can just put the grips back off the GCD. You can still keep some of the defenses on GC by all means, but grips I really think just need to be off GCD, as you've obviously got a lot of stuff to worry about with your runes and trying to get your runes up and then rune striking and stuff like that. So yeah, put the grips back to where they were, and pretty much the Blood DK play would be better, not perfect, but better, and feel a lot more like it does at the moment. Something else to mention is if you're expecting Blood DKs to change gameplay a lot, then all you're really going to find is that it's just a slower version of what they currently are. So if you like how they play now, then you should pretty much be happy with what's to come, apart from obviously them being a little bit slower. If you don't like them now, then I'd probably suggest to stay away from them, but it's all about personal preference. Personally, I think it's an okay thing. They just need to sort these change out. I'll probably be playing a Blood DK, but we'll have to wait and see. Anyway guys, I've waffled on far too long on this video. If you like my stuff, please like, comment and subscribe for more stuff, and I'll catch you guys on my next vid.